This video is brought to you by NordVPN. Last month, the channel uploaded a video on how The Last of Us Part 2 got censored for the Japanese market, and now, following on from the first video, here's the Part 2 video with more ways the game got censored over in Japan. But just to recap from last time, Japan's zero rating system for console games has various restrictions on what content can be shown, even with the max Z rating. This means that while suggestive content is perfectly fine, hence a lot of fanservice-y games that we see coming out of Japan, actual explicit nudity and sex is not allowed for games rated by 0. This meant that the scene between Abby and Owen had to be modified for the Japanese release, with the screen simply fading to black not long after the characters start kissing. The scene then skips ahead to the next scene, completely cutting it out. That wasn't all for the Japanese release though. The Japanese localization of The Last of Us 2 has actually been met with a lot of controversy over in Japan, with many reviews on sites like Amazon criticizing the game's heavy censorship to violence. Interestingly, the average Amazon review score is also only 3 stars with 1800 reviews in Japan, whilst over in the US it is 4.5 stars. A Japanese YouTuber has done a great job at comparing the violent censorship between versions, and there will be a link to the full 18-minute video in the description if you want to go check it out. The censorship to the Japanese version is very extreme. During gameplay, not only is all dismemberment removed, but so is virtually all damaged textures in general. This means that during combat, corpses are left with no damage being visible, no matter how many times you shoot them. For some comparisons, here's an example of the explosive arrow being used in the Japanese version. And here's the English release. And then here's the shotgun over in Japan. And then in English. And then here's the Japanese landmine. And then the English version. Moving things over to the cutscenes, relative to the gameplay, things generally don't get too gory. However, there is one quite gruesome scene where Abby sees her friends hung and with their internal organs coming out of their stomachs. For the Japanese release, the internal organs were removed, like so. This is also similar to an event that happens during gameplay, where you can witness a hung person being stabbed in the stomach and then being able to freely investigate the corpse close up. Again, over in Japan, the intestines were completely removed, and you can just see a dark patch along the stomach. One thing some gamers in Japan are especially unhappy about is the fact that The Last of Us 2 was heavily marketed based around its mature, violent themes, and how this ties in with the story. And the heavy censorship in Japan is seen as taking away from that. Furthermore, whilst it's true that the zero rating system forbids certain gory depictions, the way the censorship has been implemented could have been handled much better and kept much more faithful to the original depictions. For example, Naughty Dog could have just toned damaged textures down in places rather than simply completely removing them. But there's also one more interesting change made over in Japan, and this revolves once again around nudity related content. During one section of the game you can find this note which has a range of crude doodles drawn all over it. Despite being very childish in nature, the crude doodles of penises and breasts got modified in the Japanese release to instead show women in bikinis surrounded by tentacles. Yes, in the Japanese release, the penises got replaced by tentacles. And so this is quite an interesting way to go about implementing this particular alteration. What do you think about The Last of Us Part 2 in Japan? As always, please let us know your thoughts in the comments below and hit subscribe to stay up to date on how media is changed around the world. Until next time, thank you for watching.